First of all, thank you so much for taking time out to speak with us at Glitter. I can't say enough how much you're just a legend in the industry, and going back to 2002 and your first album. There was a pivotal time for a lot of women in music, and I know I got to experience your music from the Bahamas. I moved out of the East Coast to
Oh,
the Bahamas. It was such a spiritual moment to be able to experience your first album while I was living there before I moved back to the States. Having my daughter. So just a little personal experience on the history of your music and
I
how
love that. By the ocean and
yeah.
a beautiful
Uh,
saying thank you. I love that whole visual. That sounds like a beautiful transition and mood.
yes. Yes, and your music is just so inspiring. Just as a woman in not just music but career, you've just inspired so many people. I know I could speak for many others. So just to get that those kudos out the way. Tell us about how you got your start with your first album, Even Closer, with that hit single "Closer," which everyone loves. How did you get your start in music?
Thank you. It's still when like just even hearing you say hit single and 20 years and all of this is still kind of blows my mind. I remember starting over 20 years ago, and I just wanted to be able to do the music that I love, that, write lyrics that I believed in, just do honest lyrics and be able to express myself as a singer songwriter without worrying about genre, and so I started independently with my family label, Skyblaze Recordings, and worked with Souls of Mischief and Hieroglyphics, who helped us get a distribution deal through Red. And it was a slow grow. I mean, it started with pressing up 1,000 CDs, because that's what we could afford at the time, and just building a local following, and then a couple thousand, and then getting distribution with our independent label, and um, getting to do like 65,000, and then work with a major label, and get more exposure. But I think it's been humbling. It's been empowering. I'm thankful to be here, what, 6, 7 albums deep, about to put out Colors. And, I've kind of never stopped performing, but I take little gaps in between when I put out albums. And I'm just thankful to still love music and to still be doing it, and finding different ways to be creative, and even get into the immersive kind of like journey of the senses aspect of it, even past music.
Yes. There's definitely something to be said for being a independent female artist and having this longevity in an industry that doesn't always love us back as women.
Yeah,
So
it's a
absolutely.
it's a roller coaster, you know.
Yes. hmm and your music, it touches on family, love, community. How is all of that influenced and expressed through your music?
Well, I was born and raised in Oakland and Berkeley, and you know, my family is, I come from Black South Africans and German Jews. I'm second generation and grew up in the Bay Area. So I feel like that definitely informed my perspective and music influences growing up listening to, Huma Sakela and Miriam Makeba, as well as Aretha Franklin and Stevie Wonder and Nina Simone, and later Prince, and then, then getting into the hip hop generation and EPMD and Digital Underground and all of these like soul samples coming through hip hop. I think a lot of that can be felt musically, and then even theme wise, I think who I've been influenced by is artists that talk about humanity and talk about love. And, it's more of being a whole person, not just entertainer.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just you have such a vast catalog of artists that you've worked with or collabed with. Again, from hip hop, R&B, neo soul. What's the process like for you? I know there's so much that goes into it, but in writing and creating your music, because it is so unique. I hate to even put a label on it. But where do you start the process?
Interesting question. The process is something that I'm still kind of figuring out. I try and show up to the studio as much as possible. Um, and sometimes, I'll have something on my mind or heart. There might be lyrics and a melody that I'm working through, and then sitting down with a musician, like with this past album, I collaborated a lot with Errol Cooney, a guitar player I've been working with for many years, and Mike Auberg, piano player, and Bedrock, a producer I've been working with since the second album. And so sometimes it's lyrics and melody first,
Mm,
and then and just finding chords that fit the story and kind of fit the sound, and we're just kind of working it out like a puzzle piece. And sometimes it's the track that comes first, like for instance Purple or I Need You, or Oh Hi. Those songs, there was a track first and I felt a vibe, and then I was writing music to fit the vibe of that. And I try not to get too caught up in what the genre is, um, and just make sure it's a vibe and I feel it. And I kind of walk away and see what sticks with me and, you know, get to revisit it. And I think on this past album, I really got to take my time because I had a few years in between that and the project before. And I even got to kind of test out a couple of the songs live at shows and see what felt good and what resonated and what parts I might want to revisit and just kind of build out a little more. And it's a vulnerable process, I think, as a songwriter, but there's, the personal part where I'm kind of, where it's almost therapeutic and I'm processing my own thoughts and feelings. But then there's what is going to stick with me and what's going to resonate with other people. What's so that's kind of nice to be, let that kind of form organically sometimes.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned your new album, which is so exciting, Colors, and you have the two singles, Time Heals and Purple.
Yeah.
First of all, this is a gift to have new music from you. So excited to hear it. With Time Heals, you worked with Keon Harrell. Talk to us about that.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful song, and some of the other people that you collaborated on the song with.
Thank you. Keon Harold is a phenomenal trumpet player, but also a phenomenal songwriter. Um, and his melodies, I'm just so I grew up listening to a lot of jazz and blues and stuff through my parents. And I'm just so glad that artists like him and Robert Glasper and um, different folks are really getting their shine now. And there's like this resurgence of jazz,
Yeah.
and Christian Scott, Ben Williams, all these different folks. So I got to work with him. I got to work with Chris Dave, who's a phenomenal drummer, and he has his own project, Drumheads. And so we had worked together, collaborating on his project. And then I was like, "Will you come and do some stuff with me?" And Mike Albergs, Derek Hodge, who also has his own albums, phenomenal bass player, and he arranges strings for symphonies and Oscars and all kinds of stuff. So that song Time Heals was really like a combination of some of my favorite musicians. And it's one of the live songs on there. Of course, we recorded this through the pandemic. So it was like I'm flying my idea to someone else's home studio and they're putting their vibe on it and sending it to someone else's studio and finding a way for it to all be one at the end. It was like a wild process, but I was so happy with it. And Errol Cooney's also on guitar on there. And the whole song is just about navigating through just rough, rough times. It was kind of, I think I started writing it during the pandemic. And it's kind of wild now. We're in this whole other time on the brink of war. I'm like hoping for a ceasefire, but um it just speaks to how uncertainty can bring up all these unresolved, intense feelings of being overwhelmed. And if we do our due diligence, you know what I mean, and keep putting one foot in front of the other and are active in the process, that, over time heals all things and scars will fade and we'll come out on the other side okay. And I think that's just been a process for me that I've been leaning into lately of um just trusting my gut and being okay with the unknown.
Mhm, absolutely. And your music, it just has transcended generations, and you have Drake sampling your songs, so many artists sampling your songs. What does that feel like for you to have your song, your music used in new ways, and as well as, what do you hope new generations take from your catalog? Uh, Getting this exposure to learning more about you, let's say Gen
Yeah.
X and
That's what I hope for. I hope that it translates and then people find their way back to some of my albums. Um, there's a part of me that gets really excited when people sample it because, especially being part of the hip hop generation, I first started performing um, after, before I was singing with bands and writing my own songs. I was singing a cappella, and then I was singing over hip hop instrumentals. And it was just like whoever had the hottest track at the time, at a party, I would just rock my version of something over that. And so I take it as flattery, sampling things. I never thought that it would be like a hip hop freestyle bed because it's like it's so mellow, but I guess the drums and the bass hit hard. So YG also sampled it. And but I do like it when people do it officially. And it would be nice if it, is more of a collaborative thing. Sometimes people just use it, and that's cool because it's getting out there. But, as a songwriter, it's nice when people come back to you and collaborate. I loved that Her did her own version, um, Closer to Me. And when she performed at her festival, Lights Out in the Bay Area, we did the song together. And that was just really dope, like a great full circle moment. Um, yeah. So I think I'm like humbled by that song is living on.
yeah. And I'm who have been some of your inspirations? I know you have your own unique sound, but have you had, any names that have been true inspirations to your work?
I would say, like, over the years, like, some of the artists that my parents were playing when I was growing up that I still listen to, and a lot of people that I actually got to meet and are incredible, like Stevie Wonder, who's been like a mentor to me. I would say Nina Simone, who I never got to meet, but just have always been inspired by her music, and actually going to be part of a tribute getting to sing one of her songs with the Oakland Symphony. Um, I would say Huma Sakela and Miriam Makeba, soul jazz artists out of South Africa. Both of them are no longer alive, but I did get to do a show with Huma Sakela. I would say Prince has been a long time inspiration, and he was a friend and mentor and influenced a lot of how I write love songs, or how I approach what feels like sensual, and edgy. Like when I was writing Purple, I definitely looked to him for inspiration. But I would say those folks and more kind of stay on my list of inspiration.
Yes. And do you have some special packaging I'm hearing with the new album? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, with this album, Closer, I mean, with this album, Colors, um, I did something a little different where there's certain scented candles that go with different moods and different vibes of the song. So Purple, I Need You, Oh High and Enough are kind of in the purple blue zone. And there's a scent that goes with it. And people can go to dreamseeker.com for that, or goapele.com. Because I feel like there's just a energy and a mood and a vibe that I want to emote, that I hear and feel when I with certain sounds, and I wanted for people to get something a little more for me past just what I'm recording in the studio, but like kind of how I want them to feel and how I see it. And then there's um another color and scent, Color My Heart, that goes with a couple songs. And then Time Heals is with the Golden Hour candle. And then there's also limited edition merch that goes with those.
Wonderful. And we also know that you're a mom. How has becoming a mom, deciding to have a family, how has that changed your music or, developed your music in any way? Just how's it changed you as a mom? I know,
Yeah,
life.
as a mom,
Yeah,
and being a mom and an entrepreneur and an artist, it's kind of like having more than one baby, because um I have a daughter, but then, you know, pouring into my music as a career and being an entrepreneur, I feel like all of those things are something I want to give 100% or more to. All those things sometimes feel like I can never give enough time to. And I just kind of have to, it's a work in progress to figure out the schedule and balance to it. I'm really thankful that I'm not doing it alone and I have a good team around me, and that her father is really involved in her life, um, and my family. It's just because I always knew I wanted to be a mother, and I always knew that I wanted to be a creative person and in music. And I'm just so glad that I didn't have to pick. And it's like we just figure out, how to make it work.
on the way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And where on a another personal note, where do you like to maybe travel? Where do you find your peace? I don't know. Do you enjoy making music abroad or Is there a
Yeah.
special place?
Where do I like to travel and where do I find my peace? I would say, I mean, I travel all the time for music. So there's just certain cities that have a good vibe for shows that are fun.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah,
when I'm home in the Bay Area, I love getting to go to New York and Atlanta and DC just for the vibe of doing live music in those places. Um, and LA is always such like a collection of creative people. I also have family in South Africa and got to collaborate with a couple artists with Casper Nyovest, who's really huge there. And I have yet to perform those songs with him, but I think I'm going to be going back soon. And I just recorded a song with Major League DJs who are getting international recognition, and I'm excited about that and getting to perform that. As far as where I find my peace, I would say that's a little I feel like nature,
yeah,
honestly, like going to the beach almost anywhere if the water's clean. Um, being by the ocean gives me peace. And I'm so glad that I got to, I got to go to Costa Rica recently. That was so peaceful. I got to do a show in Jamaica recently. I got to do a show in Hawaii recently. And all that was on my vision board. I always love it when I can go somewhere through work and then bring in the vacation. But sometimes I just have to just go to the water, whether, there's work there or not. And I would say even sometimes the redwoods, but for me, just any connection with nature and just fresh air kind of and sun just gives me a reset, even if it's
yeah.
only like for an hour, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, so my last question for you, our publication Glitter started a self-love campaign in 2015 in
Mm,
Normandy, and a lot of artists lent their voices where we've really made self-love. We brought it to the mainstream. So now there's, everyone's talking about self-love and self-care, but I would
yeah.
love to know what self-love means to you. It's reflected in your music.
Um, it's such an important theme. And I think it's something that I've thought about since I was a little girl, because I used to go to these peer-led support groups with the Black Women's Health Project and be present. And it was about empowerment and also self-love and self-acceptance. I think the self-care is something I'm so glad is being brought into mainstream culture for women. Like not the just like I'll sleep when I'm dead and hustle hard and grind, the grind never ends. I think we know now that we need to take good care of ourselves so we can be here. And health is like the most important and quality of life, right? I think I speak a little bit to it on one of these new songs that's on the project called Enough, that just speaks to sometimes not feeling like enough, but I think something that I've been growing just personally in myself is self-worth and self-acceptance and learning how to rely on myself and my own inner voice, um, and love on myself without having to get permission, um, or approval or that, from someone else or the outside world. So I think the self-love thing has definitely been, like you said, since 2015, you guys have been working on it. And for me, like it's been a life journey, but especially in the past couple years when even with the pandemic where we just kind of had to sit still at home, I had to reflect so much because my career changed so much in that time, and just like through meditation and just different self-care and journaling and therapy and all that kind of stuff. um I'm like, I feel a lot more settled and peaceful within myself. um yeah, I am all about that, and I think that's one of the beautiful things um of getting older, honestly, as a woman, is like leaning into more self acceptance and a different kind of inner strength.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. So thank you again. We're looking forward to hearing Colors. Well, I've heard it, but fans on 11/3, correct? Where can they find the album and stream it, listen to it?
So Time Heals and Purple is out everywhere right now. And the Purple video, please check that out too. And then the Colors album will be available everywhere November 3rd on. So yeah, I appreciate the support.
Thank you so much. Wonderful meeting you and looking forward to chatting again soon.
Thank
Thank you.
you. I appreciate it.